In this video, I'm going to show you how I just got regular mortar and Portland, and I fixed my dad's garage with it. I just painted it. This is the way they did it in the old days with the old school. They wouldn't use real paint. They were too cheap. They're all depression people. So they use mortar and Portland. I'm going to show you how I did it, and I'm going to explain more at the end. Well, today I'm going to paint the back of my dad's garage. You see, he had that painted with cement before. And got all this stuff, these old coal chutes we used to use for concrete and coal, and that was done years ago, that site. So we're going to clean this all up and paint it with cement today. So we go around, we get all the nails out, everything we could get out. Now if you see any moss on it, you just get a wire brush and get it off. That's it. So let's look at what's going on. We got some, you can see small holes here. There's where the nails were at. We got some cracks up here. Get over here, we got nail holes. The edges over here, we got holes. So all we're going to do is just mix up some fast drying cement and patch it up. Now before I do anything, I'm going to wet it first, because when I patch those holes, I want it to stick. So I'm going to wet it first. Now I'm just going to use this fast set repair mortar. I got to do a video on that, but it's fast drying because we want to do everything in one day. So we're going to do that, and then just going to get a little bit of sand and mix it in, because it's awful pasty, this stuff, and it doesn't have to be strong. Then I'm just going to add the water, mix it up. That's it. Close to where I want it. Just like that. I got some cracks here. Just got myself a little sponge float. Just getting it in there. If I see anything, I want to fill it up. Just like that. See that? And right here a little bit maybe. Right there, go across here for the joint, like that, ready to go. So that's what we're doing. Anything that looks like we got a hole, we just fill it in, just like that. Then we paint it, there won't be so many holes. So if you look underneath here, back in the old days, nobody bought lentils. Everybody made their own lentils. So we're just going to cover this up the same way as we're doing everything else. So that's it. Getting the edges a little bit. Okay, for the most part, we got it all. Look at this. It's only a little while later and it's pretty much dry already. Just going to go over and see if we missed anything. And then we're going to mix up our cement paint. So now we're going to mix up the paint. I got regular S mortar here. That's mortar with Portland in it, or lime with Portland in it. And that's Portland. So I'm going to go half and half. 3 shovels of Portland, 3 shovels of S mortar. Now we got half and half Portland and half S mortar. And what are we going to do? We're going to make a paint out of it. It ain't no big deal. People that have been doing this since the beginning of time. Whether they use lime or Portland or whatever they use, around these parts we use Portland. do is make a paint out of it. Mix it up into a nice paint. It's what they did in the old days. That's pretty good. That's a paint. Now, I'm going to make sure we're stirred up pretty good. Looking good. I'm going to take this. Put it in a bucket. And right after that, I'm going to wet it again. See, that stuff is dry already. We're going to wet it again. And then we're going to start painting it. We want to do one section at a time because cement has a tendency to change colors. We know it's pretty wet. So we're all ready here. We're just going to start painting. We're going to see what works. Then as you go, you gotta make sure it's wet. It's old Tom Sawyer, old school cement painting. Get a little closer. We look inside our bucket here. It's like a milkshake. See how thick it is? It's like a milkshake. You want to put it on thick like that, but it has to be wet. This is the old school. You want to fill in all those holes. See them? You fill in all the holes. Just like that. No big deal. Make sure you got enough cement on there. And just do it. So I got it mostly done. You can see it starting to dry over here, but it's good. It made a big difference. So that's it, basically finished. I give you a little history on this garage. This was built around 1961, and I remember them digging the footer. They dug the footer by hand. Everybody in the 50s and 60s were building garages out of blocks, and it was cinder blocks. So because they're from the Depression era, what they did was, instead of buying real paint, they would get the cement paint and paint it. Now, both sides have been painted, and it lasted from the 60s, and it's not real paint where it's peeling. But if you wanted to use real paint, you got to patch the holes anyway. So the first thing you do is I got that fast drying cement, and I got those sponge floats, which was old, and I just fixed it all up, patched it all up first. And then the cement, the old school whitewashing, you use a regular paintbrush. You don't use a roller. Roller won't get in there. You got to get into those grooves, you got to wet it. Now if they wanted to paint it, now it's ready for painting. Usually when you paint with cement first, you wait at least 30 days, and then you can get a good masonry paint and go right over the top of it. In this case, we're not going to do that. Now, when you use regular cement, I mixed mortar and I mixed Portland together, because that's what they used in the 60s. And there's a couple spots that you could see where the block might have been a little harder and it wouldn't absorb water as fast, so that comes out darker. And the other stuff that dried quicker came out lighter. You could always go over it again. This is old school whitewashing. I did a video when I was in Scandinavia. It's called Tudor Houses and the Bricklayers of Denmark. And those buildings over there were 400 years old, and all they do is keep patching them up every year. It's not a big deal. A lot of the new schoolers don't like the idea that I've shown you the old school stuff. It doesn't cost any money, but that's the way the old schoolers did it. So I'm going to stop the video right here because this is 2 months later. It came down and I noticed those dark spots, which were over in here, they disappeared because cement, traditional cement, kind of bleaches itself as it goes. And if it gets wet, like you see on the very bottom where it stays wet, it stays a little darker. Now if I was really worried about, I wanted everything the same color and I didn't want to show effervescence, I would use a white mortar and a white Portland and paint it with that, and that hides a ton of scents. But the rest of the building was this way and we did it. And the old school people back in the 50s and 60s, back from the Depression era, they didn't spend any money on paint. So they just used the extra cement and did the whole building and you were done. So I like to pass these tips and tricks on. New schoolers don't like it that much. You can still wait your 30 days, look at the can and painted a masonry paint right over this. I've done it all the time, no problem. Sometimes if you're in a real estate deal, you can't wait 30 days. They want to buy the house, you got to get it in, boom, boom, boom. Do what you can do in a short period. So I hope you enjoy these videos. I'm Mike Haduck. I like to pass the old school stuff on. Thanks for watching. Check out my description box for t-shirts, etc. And I'll see you next video.